Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Brown Brilliance, where we speak to some amazing women who discuss their stories, their struggles and their successes, and how they're inspiring other brown women on their journeys. Today we're going to speak to Sukh Ojla. She's an actor, a comedian, and just recently released her first book, Sunny. Let me just add her on. Hi Sukh!
Hello.
It's lovely to have you here. It's great to be talking to you today.
Thank you so much for having me. Isn't it great that we had no technological issues
Yeah,
before
brilliant.
we
It's
came on?
just been you're totally
It's
seamless.
been such smooth sailing.
It's straight into it. It's the first time we're doing this. Oh, funny. Um, yeah, so introduce yourself. Tell me how you got to doing what you do and, more about
Yeah,
yourself.
sure. My name's Sukh Ojla. I am a comedian, writer, actress. I never know which order to say that in because
Yeah.
I do all three, and I always feel like I want to subconsciously say one more than the other, depending on what I'm doing more of that week. Um, yeah, that this is kind of what I've been doing since I was 20, on and off. I live in the Midlands now. I grew up in Gravesend in Kent, which, if you have any South Asian listeners, will know that and will be related to at least one person I know. Um, yeah, this is kind of what I do. I'm self-employed. I tried having a proper job for a few years and it was miserable. uh, Utterly miserable. So instead, I took all of that trauma and I put it in my work.
Worked.
It's working all right so far.
Okay, that's brilliant. So I mean, it's good to have a bit of a background in terms of what you're doing and how you got there. Do you think being a brown woman has impacted your journey at all and helped you in terms of being a comedian or a playwright or even writing your
Uh,
latest book?
I don't know. I don't know whether it's helped or hindered because obviously I've got nothing to compare it to, having always been a brown woman and always been working class and always been Punjabi Sikh and always being plus size, which plays a huge part in, especially when you're acting,
Yeah.
in terms of castings and stuff. So I think on some level, obviously, racism is very much embedded into our society. So there's a lot of, oh, we've already got one of you. And I never know if that means
Mm,
a brown person or a woman or both. Maybe I'm ticking both those boxes for these guys. So I think it kind of sets you apart because there's not that many of me around. Coming from obviously an immigrant family and stuff, a lot of the South Asians that I meet in the arts are middle class. Their parents are, fairly supportive on some level. So, so you might look at someone and go, "Oh, you're also Punjabi, or you're also South Asian, and our struggles are the same." And then they're like, "Yeah, so my parents really wanted me to be a doctor," and you're like, "Yeah, same here." And they were like, because they're all doctors, and you're like, "Oh, right, that's
right. Okay.
that's not my story." So, like, having both parents who were not did not have the privilege of having an academic education
Hmm.
and being here, obviously it toughens you up in some ways. And
Yes.
also having working class Punjabi parents is always gonna like make you fairly tough and resilient because if
Yeah.
anyone's gonna tell you that you're not doing well, it's gonna be them. When people cry about reviews and critics and stuff, I'm like, my two critics are indoors like watching the Sick channel, so I'm good. Like,
I'm okay. I'm okay. Yeah.
okay,
This isn't going to
you
touch me.
you can say what you like. Yeah, so I think in some levels, I think that look, the executives, or the majority of executives, or the higher ups in TV and whatnot, and publishing are white, middle
Mm,
class men generally. So they might see me as a novelty and go, "Oh well, you've got something different to say." But on the other hand, what I get a lot of is, well, is that really going to be relatable? Like, is your content relatable to the mainstream? Or are people really going to understand what you're saying? And there was a bit of worry with that when I wrote my book, Sunny, because I was like, oh, is it only going to be applicable to working class Punjabi women like me?
yeah.
And actually, it hasn't been the case at all. People from all backgrounds and all genders and all races have read it and have got in touch and said that they really enjoy it. So yeah, I think I don't really know the answer to that one. I wish I could give you an easy answer rather than rambling on for 5 minutes about it. But that this is what you
Honesty
signed
is the
up for,
best, yeah.
basically.
No, that's fine. I read your book and I thought it was brilliant.
Thank
It was
you.
really heartwarming, and I personally found it was quite relatable. It was kind of really visceral and raw, and it was so
Mm.
wonderful to see the character of Sunny go from being, somebody that wasn't quite sure of herself, wanting to appease people, and then, by the end, feeling the confidence to be herself. It was really
Mm.
nice to see the journey that she went through to get there.
Oh,
So that was
thank
really
you.
good.
Yeah, thank you. I was a bit sick of reading books with Indian or South Asian protagonists where it was all about trauma, and it was all about, this awful thing happened to me, or it's terrorism related, or it's so-called honor killing related. I say so-called because I don't like the term honor killing, because there's no honor in killing. But so I think I didn't want to do anything that had like trauma with a big T, and instead I wanted it to be an everyday story of someone who really could be from any background, because a lot of us struggle with low self-esteem or mental health issues, or comparing ourselves to other people, which Sunny does really well. Like, compares
Yeah,
herself
yeah.
to a lot of people, and feels like she falls short of people's expectations. So thank you so much. I also wanted a bit of representation of a Sikh family that I think a lot of people could relate to. So obviously, like, Sunny is very loosely based on some of my own experiences. My parents are baptized Sikhs, they're Amritari. So obviously, like, her parents aren't exactly like my parents. But I wanted to show the Gurdwara in a positive light. I wanted to show the fact that even though Sunny might not completely understand the faith that she's born into, she still goes, actually, I'm feeling really low. I've got nowhere else to turn. And she finds herself at the Gurdwara, and she's there and she's listening to Bart. And,
Yeah, it was still a space of like solace, wasn't it? It was like,
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. And I figured, well, at least that can be a bit of a gateway if I want to talk more about Sikhi, my work, my faith. Then it's a nice little kind of segue into it. It's a bit more relatable than saying, well, this is how we live our life, which might be very different to how a lot of people live
yes.
their life. And you don't want it to be a manual for something. It's like, let me explain to you what it's like living in this family where the mum's like, I'm going to listen to Sokni Savda Part on a
It
Sunday.
was really nice to hear that. I was like, oh, yes.
Because that's what I grew up with. And how lovely that, I mean, obviously we don't see a lot of ourselves in books. And how lovely that, someone opened my book like you did and went, oh, I recognize that. Like, that's something that's an experience I recognize. Or, you
Yeah,
know, you didn't dilute that or translate it into something else. And that's something I was
definitely.
really keen on doing. I'm keen on doing in a lot of my work, in all of my work, is to be as authentic and truthful as I can. So I was really lucky. My editor has South Asian heritage, which is amazing. So she really understood where I was coming from. And she was the one who said to me, because I said, I want to use Punjabi, I want to use my first language in my book. It would be so weird for me to just translate everything, because that's not how our family speak at home.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
it's a mishmash for a lot of us of English and Punjabi and whatnot. So I said, if I'm writing things like Bison, for example, I was like, do I put brackets Indian sweet? Like, what do I do? And she went, we're not doing brackets.
You
We're
can
not
Google
doing
it, surely.
italics.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then I was like, do I need a glossary? Do I need to help people out? She was like, Sukh, no. She was like, there are so many people out there who will figure out what this is, even if they do not speak a South Indian language, like they
True.
or
Very
like
true.
Indian language, or any, or Punjabi or whatever. And I thought that's so true. Like, we were talking about it, and I thought people will watch Lord of the Rings with a completely made up language, and this is a language that
You
actually
still
a lot
figure it
of
out.
people speak. Yeah,
Yeah.
and even if you don't understand it completely, you're gonna go, okay, so if someone's having a cup of tea and some bison, chances are it's going to be something sweet. It's not going to
Something
be
like a
like,
biscuit.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. They're not going to go, oh, bison, what could that be? A shampoo? Like, you're not, you're going to figure it out, right? So, yeah, I went off on a bit of a tangent, but I don't even remember what the question was now. So you might as well ask me another one.
Okay, right. Well, just off what you've said, has this always been like a part of what you do to try to be so kind of authentic and true to your identity, or is this something that you have grown into? I mean, like, was there a point where you had to choose between maybe being more successful and maybe not being as authentic as you say, like you thought your book would be more popular if it wasn't so, didn't
Mm.
have the Punjabi language in there and everything else, or has it always been a point that no, I'm going to include it, I'm going to be authentic even in my stand up. Like I remember watching, I think you on Jonathan Ross,
Yeah.
and it was about holidaying in Bradford and
Bradford,
things
yeah.
like that. And it was like, oh, that is so real. I mean, I was born up in Leeds, and I know you were as
Yeah.
well. So that's
Yeah.
that.
I thought I could hear the accent. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Try to kind of mellow it out a bit, but it's still there. um, but yeah, so I mean, has it always just been, I'm going to be authentic, I'm going to be myself, or was there a pivotal point where you thought, no, this is more important than success, or is it, would you define success, the same as being that authentic? Then, if you know what I mean.
That's a really good question. I think I've not really thought about that. I think what happened is I think like a lot of children who grow up in this country whose parents are not from this country, there's a tussle, there's a bit of a tug of war between your identities, and you're not very
Of
sure. And
course.
I've never met another Punjabi person who's not been through this, like who's grown up here. Every British Punjabi I've met has gone, oh my God, do you remember when I had my white phase and I was wearing blue contacts and I dyed my hair blonde and I looked like a German Shepherd? Like, I'm like, yeah,
Oh
because
gosh.
we all tried it. We never really knew what we fit in. And I think the joy of coming to this career, because I took a break, and I took a break because I wasn't very happy in myself. I didn't really know who I was, and that I didn't realize at the time. In hindsight, I was like, I needed to take that break to see the world a little bit, experience other things. And then I came back to it at 30. And then at 30, I just found that I didn't really care what people thought. I cared a lot less. And now, I'm edging towards 40. So it's my big 40th next year. So I'm also like, I
Me
care
too.
even less now. Really? Are you 40
Yeah,
next year? Are you 84
yeah,
baby?
yeah. 84.
Oh wow. So yeah, and actually my next show, I'm going to talk about this. It's called oh, this is a bit of an exclusive. I've not actually announced it yet. You can have this.
You hear it
Um,
here first.
it's called The Road to Success,
Okay.
because everybody thinks by the time you reach a certain age, you should have it all. You should have the big house, you should have all, the husband, your partner, your kids, your nice cars, your nice holidays, a double garage. Like, they're like, you should have it all by that age. I don't have any of those things. And so it's like, well, am I still a success?
Of
And it's
course, the thing is that word success
according to me.
changes as you grow older as well, doesn't it? It's
Yeah.
like I can imagine once you get to that point, then you're like, right, okay, there's this other milestone over there somewhere that we
What
should have
do I
reached
want
by
now?
now. Yeah,
Absolutely. Like all I ever really wanted to do was to do this full time. And now I get to do it. I'm like, okay, what's next? What do I do now? I think in terms of authenticity, as I've kind of grown more comfortable with who I am, I think that's reflected in my work. I know when I'm not being authentic because the work isn't as good in my eyes.
right. Yeah,
It might other people might enjoy it, but I don't enjoy doing it because I'm like telling a lie. And even though people might think, yeah, but you're an actor, so surely that's about pretending to be someone else. But also, acting is also about telling the truth. It's about telling the truth of the character and being truthful to the script. So for me, there's no real other way. I've probably have like shot myself in the foot and maybe not got as much mainstream airtime or whatever because of the kind of stuff that I want to talk about, because I want to share my Punjabiness with people, share my working class roots, all the rest of it. So, in terms of live shows, people will really enjoy that because the people that it attracts are people like us, essentially, um, and other people as well. So I might not speak to Middle England, but then they've got about 50 million white comedians to listen to, so it's like you can have that. You
yeah.
can
This is
have that.
refreshing and for us.
Yeah, well, for us it is. And I speak to my friend Tommy Sandu, who's obviously a performer as well, and he's like, I wish there were 10 of you. And I say, I wish there were 10 of me as well, because I don't want to be the only one. And there are other people kind of coming up who, who are of a different generation to us, who obviously, have it a bit easier, because that's how it goes, right? In some ways, they're like, yeah, of course, man. My parents have met my boyfriend. They're fine with him. I'm going to move in with him next week. I'm like, are you kidding me? If I had a boyfriend now, my parents wouldn't meet him. Like,
Exactly. I was like, what are you doing? Who
yeah,
is he?
we
Where's
did
he
it
from? Get
at
up
age
and
9, and they'd still be like, a what? So yeah, I think for me, there's no other option. I don't know what's right or wrong for anyone else, but I don't see a point in, like, life is hard enough. Why pretend to be someone you're not?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, it's so much easier to just be genuine, be
Yeah,
yourself. It's freeing, it's liberating instead of having
yeah.
to make sure that you're coming across a certain way all the time or hitting certain
Mm,
points that aren't true to you. It's difficult, it's hard work,
mm.
it's tiring
Absolutely. And
ultimately.
also, like, if you share how you feel on any level, whether it's through an Instagram caption or a stand-up show, or just even like a message in a WhatsApp group, like, you're giving other people permission to share about themselves and have permission to be brave. So if you're up there being vulnerable in any capacity, even in day-to-day life, then I think you're doing a really big service to your community.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, as well as seeing other things like that on Instagram, it does make you think, all right, okay, that's normal. That's
Yeah.
it's validated. That's right. That's okay. It's not something that is abnormal or something that you shouldn't be sharing.
Mm.
It's whatever you are is right. That is the right
Yeah.
way to be. So that is nice and refreshing. Um, were there any? Did you have any kind of role models from the brown community that inspired you to do what you do, or was it just like literally off your own back and something you love doing and you just went for it?
There's no one really that comes to mind, because, like I said, I was meeting people and I was like, oh, we're all going to help each other out because we're all from the same community, or at least we look similar. And then they'd be like, oh, well, actually, I grew up in Wiltshire, and, I live in a mansion. And you're like, oh, okay. So I probably didn't really have anyone in the community, because I genuinely can't really think of anyone on the scene that I could look at and go, oh, wow, you're exactly the same as me, or even similar to me. Um, because some of the brown comedians that I saw at the time, when I was like doing open mics and stuff, when I was just starting out, were very much talking about material that any comedian could talk about, any white comedian could talk about. And I was like, oh, okay, well, you're talking about like the recycling, and, and about politics, or general elections or whatever. And I'm talking about elephant Atta and, going on holidays to Bradford.
Yeah.
So I didn't really have.
Anyone watching Seek Channel? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So there wasn't really. I guess now I look at Paul Chowdhury and I think, okay, you've definitely been yourself. Like, this is who you are, and
Yeah,
you're not
he is,
changing for
isn't he?
anyone, and that's brilliant. And we've had chats about it as well. Like, I was on his podcast, and I remember when I met him in person, we spoke about it a lot. And how sometimes you can shoot yourself a little bit in the foot by being true to yourself. But you can still be successful. Like, no one can say he's not a successful person. Like, it
Of
all
course,
depends on
yeah.
your parameters of success, doesn't it? Um,
Hmm.
because no one's happy with, like, even, people that you see on telly all the time. I'm sure they're going, oh, but what I'd really want to do is present Bake Off. Like, what I really want is, like, to be a co-host of This Morning. So no one's, this, it's limitless, isn't it, our kind of need for, our desire for success. But yeah, so I think in terms of role models, I always look up to my parents, really.
Oh,
Because,
that's beautiful. That's really
yeah,
nice.
just because I mean, look, your parents are your parents, and sometimes, like, you always love them. There might be times when you're like, oh my God, you're doing my head in, but, like, they're incredible people. Like, they both grew up in big families, as was the kind of thing at the time, one of seven on both sides. And they, didn't really get a chance to have much of an education in Punjab, and then they came over here, they got married, they worked really, really hard, and, had no chance to explore their hobbies or their interests because they're working the whole time. And they're like, yeah, well, I would have loved to have gone to, evening classes, or, adult college to, like, learn English and stuff, but I had to kind of learn it on a building site, or I had to learn it in a factory, because that just wasn't open to me. And just their sheer determination and grit. Like, I could not imagine at 18 going from, say, like having lived in the UK my whole life to then going to some other country where my language is barely spoken, and then having to get a job, having to communicate with your co-workers. Not only that, they're just being like, huge, like, a racist atmosphere and racial incidents. And then to kind of get a bit older like they did, and then to become a Marathari, and to then, like, their identity, like their outward appearance to be completely changed. So they're ostracized from some members of their family as well. And so it's
as
like,
well. Yeah.
you've done like an amazing job, and they've always held their faith as just their cornerstone for everything. And, no matter how bad things get, and, I'm kind of more like them than I think I would have liked to admit. As a teenager, I was like, I'm really cool, I'm nothing like you. But, like, actually, I'm more like them. And I realized
You see it
that.
as you get older as well, don't you?
Yeah,
You see it more and more.
they say, oh, you turn into your parents. And actually, if you've got parents like mine, that's no bad thing, because, like everyone, they're flawed human beings. But what I love about them is just their strength, and the way that they just kept going and kept going and kept going. And now I'm like, have a soft life, have a nice retirement, like, relax. They're not relaxing. Like, that's the only
No,
thing
they don't know how to, do they?
they
It's just
don't know how to do it. That's the only wish I would ever have for them, is to, I really wish you'd had some time to enjoy and to relax, and to kind of enjoy the softness of life, and enjoy how soft life could be, rather than how tough and how difficult it was for you. So yeah, my parents are definitely are my role models, but I don't look to them. There's a difference there. I don't look to them for any sort of validation, really, because I know that they're not really going to understand what I do. And I'm very open about talking about the fact that my parents were dead against me doing what I do. And
really.
yeah, it's only because of the stubbornness that they taught me that I am still, that I am still here. No, they weren't. What, like, I'm an only child. Their daughter. They've worked so hard, 12-hour shifts, 6 days a week for years and years and years, and to give me everything. And then for me to turn around and go, well, thank you so much for your sacrifice. I'm going to go work 20 minutes a night above a pub in front of, drunk Gordy, trying to make them laugh, talking about Elephant Dada. Like, they're not, they were like, what are you doing?
I bet that didn't go down well.
No, it really didn't. I didn't tell them for ages, actually. It was my chachi who called them up and told them. So, because
No,
it's always your dad's side. It's always your dad's side that grasps you up.
always,
So,
always.
so now it's like, that we're at a point where they're like, okay, they've seen my shows a few times, like, they come to see me perform stand up a couple of times. They're like, okay, fine, we don't completely understand it, but we know what you're doing, and you're
Right.
safe, and you're okay, and you're obviously good at what you do, so fine. Saying that, if I went home tomorrow and I was like, Mum, Dad, I'm giving it all up, I've got a job in a bank, I'll start on Monday, they would, oh my God, they would be giving out Ludo, they would be a notice in the Punjab Times, like, there'd probably be a fart at the local gurdwara. Like, they would just
That's so
be like
funny.
so happy
Yeah.
about it. But like, I now we've as your parents get older, you both mature, and you both hopefully become closer and more understanding of each other.
Yeah.
They kind of go, do you know what? Okay, you're not on drugs, you're not an alcoholic, you're not doing anything shameful out there, you're not bringing our name into, disrepute or in any sort of way. So, and you're doing something fun, and you know what it's like for our community. If other people like you, it's the
Then
best
it's
thing.
amazing.
Oh my God, it's
Yeah.
brilliant. So now when my mum's like, in the big Asda, and she gets tapped on the shoulder, and she's like, are you Sukh's mum? She's like, like, I taught her everything she knows. So I think it's a bit nice for them. It's obviously an alien world, but,
Yeah.
like, their world would have been an alien world for me as well. Like, I couldn't imagine having the sort of life where, I'm constantly doing overtime, or I'm constantly doing these really long shifts just to make ends meet, and, pretty much everything being against me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a hard place to start for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's just, I suppose it's their resolve and their stamina
Mm,
and their feeling like they haven't got an option, basically, and they
yeah,
have to keep going to do
yeah.
it. It does remind me a
Like,
lot of my grandma, because she came to this country. Um, she was literally a single parent for most of the time. She had 7 children. She didn't speak the language, And she got through it. She went through all of that. And when I feel like I've got a lot on, I just think, just imagine,
Yeah.
I just can't even begin to imagine what her evening was like, or what she had on, or what was going on at the time.
Mm,
And she's still the most, sweet mannered, and she's just such a beautiful soul. And you'd think someone that's been through all of that would have some negativity about them,
yeah.
but no, she just still does everything with a smile on her face, and it's just so wonderful to see.
That's
So I can
so
see how that would
lovely.
be such a wonderful inspiration to you. Really, yeah, it makes a
Mm.
lot of sense. So moving on from that, do you have a hope, or do you aspire to have an impact on other brown women in the community? And do you feel like the position that you're in and your platform gives you a presence that allows you to kind of give hope and even guidance, maybe to some sense, to up and coming women and girls in your position?
Yeah, I hope so. I hope, I think just hopefully just by doing what I'm doing, I hope that there's someone out there, watching a video of me on YouTube or Instagram is going, okay, I'm going to give that a go. I'm going to go do a little open mic, or I'm going to write 5 minutes of material, or I can write a book. If she can do it, I can do it. Like that would be amazing. If that happens. And sometimes I do get the odd message from people saying, oh, I've started to get, like, a South Asian woman got in touch and she was like, I just wanted you to know that, I've started after watching you, I've started doing stand up as well, or like I'm starting to give it a go. And I just think amazing. Like there's so much room for all of us. It's not like it's not like, oh, there's a cake and there's only so many slices. It's not like that. And then, oh, that's it. That's your slice of cake and no one else can have it. There's so much room for all of us in this industry. And, if I can help anyone in any way, then I will. And I would love to, like, my hope really is in the future is to do kind of more one-on-one work or more workshopy type stuff with, women, especially women of color, to kind of go right confidence and how to do things when you're scared all the time, which is basically me. How to overcome, like, your mental health and like to manage that as well in order to kind of get ahead. Whether it's you want to go into the arts or whether you whatever it is you want to do, and create a really nice, I think I've done it on Instagram already, like to have created a nice community where people do kind of come together and support each other. But I'd really want to do more of that in the future, to kind of create something a bit more tangible. Because wouldn't have it been lovely if we'd have had that, like, at 15, 16, you know, yeah. And that's kind of, it's what I try to be now for like my friends' daughters.
Yeah,
I'm
it
like,
wouldn't be so difficult, doing what we're
yeah,
doing and where we are now. That the smallest thing, that even showing up, even that can be difficult
yeah,
sometimes.
absolutely.
Um, but I mean, if we had grown up seeing that the whole time, it
Mm.
would be it'd be so easy.
Yeah, yeah, or so much easier, or at least I don't know. At least it could have given you a boost of confidence at the very least to go, okay, here is someone who looks like me. Like the fact that we still turn on our TVs now and we'll see, a brown face and we'll go, oh my God, look, it's,
Yeah,
or you'll see a guy in a pug in a disguise in a turban, and my dad will still go, oh look, it's the thing, and it's like, yeah, that's nice that we have that representation, but I'd love to get to a point in the next decade or whatever, or 20 years, or just in my lifetime, where we just go, oh yeah, there's another thing, and it's just not a big deal because
yeah, it's just normal.
it's just
Yeah.
normal, like it's just normalized. So yeah, I would love to do more work. So yeah, anyone listening, if you've got any ideas on what I can do, let me know. Because I would really love to do. I have so many lovely conversations on Instagram and after my shows with women who are like, oh, I'm also in my 30s and I'm not married and my parents are giving me a tough time, and oh my God, how do you get through it? Like, and I go, move out. Uh, I'm like, you might not be paying rent with money, but you're paying with your emotional health. Move out. No, so it would be nice to create some sort of community where it can be for women who maybe, like me, haven't followed the traditional path, who are probably feeling like they're on the outskirts, but they don't realise that there's quite a few of us. in this
Yeah, that even
generation.
that is normal. It's not like it's abnormal. Even that is normal.
No,
It's
it's not.
wherever
Yeah.
you are is totally fine. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. But obviously, still, we're still being made to feel like there's something wrong with us, or that we're in a
yeah.
constant state of waiting, which really annoys me. Where it's like, oh, it'll happen, and I'm like, don't just want to be in this. Like, I feel like I'm constantly in a queue for Argos or something. Like, where I'm like waiting for things to happen. It's like I'm just going to live my life while I'm waiting and see.
I'm quite happy where I am.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
what happens happens. You can be happy with where you are and want more. It's not
exactly. Yeah.
either or.
No, no, exactly. So back to you and your mental health. How do you prioritize that in terms of self care? Do you have any particular kind of strategies you use to make sure that you are taking care of your mental health when
Yeah,
you're doing these shows, and just generally, like you said, being in the position that you're in, where you feel like you're in a constant state of waiting, or all these expectations that you have around you? How do you deal with that?
not very well. No, it depends really. Uh, As you get older, you obviously you know yourself better, hopefully. I've had the years of therapy. I've had my experiences with plant medicine, which I'm not going to talk about because it's not strictly legal in this country. But you can DM me about that. Um, you know,
Right,
it just changes from day to day. I think of like my mental health is just like weather, like especially weather in this country
right.
where you can get all the seasons in one day. Or you can have bright sunshine one day and it's snowing the next. And
Yeah.
then it's a case of, okay, well, what do I need today? And like a lot of people, I struggled during lockdown, especially the first lockdown, because like a lot of people, I was using work to distract myself. So I
Right.
was like, work, 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 work. And then it all stopped. And I was like, what do you mean now? I'm just at home, and now like I don't have anything to do. All my work's been cancelled. Obviously, I have no financial stability anyway, being in the arts. But, you kind of go, well, there's a bit of money I put away that I can kind of live on that. And I'm living with my parents. So I guess in a way I'm quite lucky. But also, I need to work to give me a focus. Um, so it was bad then, and that's when I kind of really put in a lot of strategies into place. So now what I do is I have a little drawer, or you can have a little box. And this is what I tell my friends when they're really going through it with depression or anxiety, particularly, is have a little drawer, or even like a little box next to your bed. If you're having a day where you're like, things are really bad today, I can't get out of bed, which obviously happens to more people than realize. In that box, you keep like some wipes, some gum, maybe like a little a vial of like your favorite perfume or your favorite scent or whatever, a candle, some matches or a lighter. It's basically like, maybe some nuts or some chocolate or something, so that if you can't get up out of the bed, at least you can feel a little bit better about being in bed, and open a window. And so that's like my little emergency toolkit for when things do get really bad. Recently, I had a bad spate because my physical health wasn't great. So now I'm like on this kind of journey to learning more about my physical health and how that ties in with my mental health. And obviously, they're the same thing because mind and body are connected. So now I'm looking more into kind of the more herbal side of things and how I can help that. And I think there's so much information out there, and there's so many strategies. And if you're anything like me, you're going to read them and beat yourself up and go, but I can't go for a walk today because I'm so anxious. I feel like something horrendous is going to happen if I leave the house, or I feel like I'm in a state of kind of paralysis and I can't move off the bed or off the sofa. You know,
Or even getting up to get ready to
yeah,
go for a
you
walk,
can't.
even
Yeah,
that can seem
absolutely.
like a
You're like it's too overwhelming. So I use a lot of lists to get me through days like that, where I'm just like where I break it down. So if I'm like, look, I know I can go for a walk today. I know I can do that. I'm physically up to it, but I'm overwhelmed by all the steps. I
hmm
will literally just open up the notes app on my phone and I will go, okay, get up. It doesn't matter how long it takes. You have to take all the pressure off. So it's like, okay, get up. Okay, go to the loo, wash your face, put your socks on, put your shoes on, like get dressed, whatever. And like, and it doesn't matter if there's 15 steps. It's like every one you do is
it's like a little win.
it's a
Yeah.
little win. It's definitely a little win. And anyone who's been in that place knows that someone's saying, "Oh, just go for a walk or just like do a little workout." It's like you might as well ask me to scale a mountain right now.
Mm.
So I think for me, I know that things like having a tidy space. Don't look at this space. This is just the junk space. Like having a tidy space, making sure that I've eaten, and it doesn't matter what that looks like. It doesn't matter if it's like a baby bell or whatever, or like, make sure I'm hydrated, as long as there's something in my belly. I try not to stay away from screens as much as possible if I'm in that kind of state, if I can, because what can happen is I can then just doom scroll and like just you see awful things or whatever, or just even even worse than that is when you see someone's doing really well and you're like, oh wow, great, I now feel like crap about myself. So I try and stay away from them as much as possible, and try and kind of listen to music or listen to Keaton or breath work. What I kind of see it is, have your toolkit, but don't try and follow anyone else's like plan. And people will try and sell you all sorts of like, mental well-being toolkits, or do this and do, and it's like maybe it's just me and my ADHD brain, but that does not work for me. So I'm like, I've got my little toolkit. I write it down, so I can, because also once if you're in a really bad way, you're not thinking straight, you're not thinking logically, you're not going to go, oh yeah, I need to know what to do. You go, there's nothing that's going to help this. I'm going to be like this forever. There's always going to be a dark cloud hanging over me. And anyone who's had depression knows that every kind of bout of depression looks different from the last. So what might work for you last time is not going to work for you this time. Sometimes that happens. So have your little toolkit, I would say. Have your little dabba, your little box by the bed with all your little things in it that make you feel
That's
better.
really nice.
And then you just go, okay, it's just today. It's just like, just all you got to do is get through the day, and that's all it is. You don't have to be anyone, you to anything. Obviously, I don't have any dependents, so I don't know how people deal with it if they've got children or if they've got any sort of caring responsibilities. Like, hats off to you. I'm talking as a woman who doesn't have any dependents and is freelance, and so I don't have to like clock in or like go to work or anything. But so if you're not in that situation, you might be going, well, it's all right for you. You got a kid's husband and a mother-in-law, and elderly parents on the corner, and two jobs. So I've got to do a big shop later. So I think also take what works for you, and don't look up to anyone as like some kind of mental health expert, because you know yourself better. Trust yourself. You know yourself better than anyone else. But all I'd say is get your toolkit and keep adding to it and subtracting to it. It's very much
Yeah, that's good.
a beast. Yeah.
That's wonderful. And I suppose people in any situation, whether they have dependents or the mother-in-law or anything else, if you, I suppose if you see it as emotions that will come and go,
Yeah.
and it's not like a fixed state that you'll be in, I suppose that helps in
Yeah.
every scenario, really.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So the last question I have for you, Sukh,
Go on.
is what's your greatest life lesson? If there's one thing over the last
Oh.
38 years, what do you think it would be?
Oh my God, there's so many, aren't there? You'll know there's so many. I'm just going to say the first one that came into my head is don't compare your journey to anyone else's, which I know sounds like a Pinterest image or like something that you'd have on a like etched into a bit of driftwood and hang it by your front door or whatever. Like live, laugh, love. But honestly, the damage that it can do living up to other people's expectations, living up to society's expectations, comparing yourself to other people, you will just chip away at your self-esteem until there's nothing left. I've been there and it's a horrible position to be in. I still struggle with it now and again. And then I go, okay, you literally have to my friend and I have like we did this thing where we have a spreadsheet, like not like separate spreadsheets where we write down our accomplishments, because it's so easy to forget where you've come from and how much you've achieved. And
Yeah,
I would really urge everyone who struggles with their self-esteem and or is kind of sitting here going, oh, I've not been on TV, or I've not written a book or whatever. It's like, honestly, even if you just do a daily achievement of I got out of bed, I had a shower, I went to work, I cooked myself a meal, or whatever I ate today, whatever it is for you, like you're getting through it. I'm really proud of you. But it's I don't know what the answer is to not compare yourself to other people. For me, it was like therapy and just like a lot of like
right.
lot of down days and a lot of introspection. Um, But yeah, I think we're so conditioned to think that we have to be a certain way, look a certain way, especially women, dress a certain way. And I think there's a little bit of a shift happening where people are going, actually, that's all a bit crap, isn't it? Because we've gone from even like in the last couple of months, like, oh, all the Kardashians are taking their fillers out, or they're taking like
Yeah.
removing their implants and stuff. And it's like, oh, the 90s are back. And I'm like, hold on. I lived through the 90s, right? Kate Moss, the super skinny, the so-called horrible term of heroin chic. And I was like, so this is just a cycle. This is what's going to happen, and then everyone's going to do, and then in a couple of years time everyone's going to go back to that look, or it's going to be, or the 80s
Back
going to
to the
come back into
implants,
fashion,
yeah.
or whatever, or early 2000s or whatever. I don't care what people say, I'm not wearing a handkerchief top. I don't care if they come back into fashion. Like, I know I can see like teenagers now wearing like bootcut jeans, and I'm like, you do not know the pain of like, it was raining and now you're walking home from school, and then basically you've got rain coming
It's
all
all
the way up
drenched.
your trousers. Like, there's that tie-dye effect going on. Um, really, it's all man-made, isn't it? Like, it's all,
Exactly, yeah.
and it's easy to say because today I'm having a good day. But if you'd asked me 2 weeks ago when I was struggling with my health, and obviously my, and my mental health and my physical health, like, my answer would have been very different. But I think that, and the fact that, oh, can I say another one? This is kind of related to it,
Yeah, sure.
is that the one thing I realized after my experiences of meeting so many people in therapy settings as well is that none of us feel like we're good enough. So if you're sitting there going,
Mm,
I'm not this, I'm not
yeah.
that, I promise you, none of us feel like that. Like, none of us feel like we're good enough. Like, we're all just want to be loved and to be seen. But we don't. Like, that's the thing that we all struggle with. I don't care if you're the CEO of something, or or if you're a stay-at-home mum, or you work in a factory, or you work in a gas-fronted building. Like, none of us feel like we're good enough. Some people just hide it better than others, and some people are
That's a
aware
very
of
good
it, and
point.
some people aren't.
Yeah.
Like, I was sitting in a kind of a therapy setting with people ranging from 19 to like 65, from all over the world, literally all over the world, and did all sorts of jobs and all sorts of backgrounds. And we all went round. There were 11 of us, and everybody just went, I just did said a version of, I don't think that I'm good enough. So that we've
Wow.
definitely got more in common than we have that, what sets us apart.
Yeah.
So really, like, we're not alone. So don't compare yourself to people. Don't worry about what Mandeep, who you went to school with, is doing now. Because she's not happy either. I promise you, she's not happy. Like, yeah, she also has her down days. She might look like, she knows what she's doing because she's, her house is really clean and she's got the Hoover lines that Mrs. Hinch likes. And all the rest of
Hoover
it.
lines,
Yeah,
all about
it's all
Hoover
about the
lines.
Hoover lines. And she might know how to do the karate chop cushions, which I still can't figure out. I still don't understand how she does it. I never stay like that. But we're all kind of figuring things out, in some way or another. So yeah, don't feel alone and don't compare yourself to Mandeep.
Yeah, they're both
Anyway,
really insightful lessons, and they're both really difficult to actually,
yeah,
to take on board. I mean, when you say them, it seems fairly straightforward. Don't compare yourself,
yeah.
and don't worry, everyone's struggling. But
How?
it is quite
But
quite a,
how, right?
yeah.
Because then you go, oh, it's easy for you to say, but like how? And that's the hardest bit, right? That's the bit you've got to figure out. But I feel like if you're aware of something, you're already halfway there.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, very true. Oh, that's brilliant. I
Sorry,
think
this
we've
hasn't been
we've
very funny,
covered a
has it?
lot.
I've just realised it's been a bit like therapy. But like, you're
Yeah, I
like,
was
oh,
expected to be laughing all the way through.
you're like, oh, it's
No.
Saturday afternoon. We'll have a bit of a laugh and a joke. Like, I've got an hour away from my kids. Um,
Yeah, exactly. All four of them. Woo. But yeah, no, it's been brilliant. I mean, it's been really wonderful speaking to you. I love what you do, and even speaking to my kids, I was telling them today that I'm speaking to a comedian and she's Sikh, and my kids, oh wow, and my son is like, oh, is she like is it like a clown? And I was like, no, it's not a clown, a comedian. So I was like explaining that to him, and it's so nice to be able to say, yeah, there's another Sikh person who's doing these amazing things, and you can just see that it opens up something extra for them, or they can see a bit further,
mhm.
and it's just it's nice. And the more people I think I can speak to like this, and more journeys we can share,
Yeah.
the more we can help and grow and learn from each other. It's a nice place to be.
Yeah. Thank you so much. This has been so nice.
It has, yeah. We'll have to do it again sometime.
Let's do it. We should do it in person.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
With
Let's do
Jar and
that.
Bisson, we'll do that.
Yeah. We don't need any kind of definition of what
No,
basin is
we
this
will
time,
know
but yeah,
exactly
it'll
what
be
we
fine.
mean.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you so much, Suk,
Thank you.
and take care.
Cheers.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.